And those further back in time seem to be a lot more in tune with the natural flow of things. So perhaps they were more easily connected back to the source itself. So when we start to look back through history, we see a lot of things that are repeating in cycles of time. That's fine. But then you start to see the same thing. There were a lot of people that were looking to divinity. And it seems that when the back's against the wall and people are really scared and things just don't make sense because of what man has created for them, they always turn back to the light to look for answers. So if you survive those events and afterward, would you not tell the next generations or carve it in stone or, leave messages on canyon walls or write myths and stories so they would be passed down through religion? Instead of being a story, you make it the integral part of a society that never disappears ever. So it's always there as the message for the next future, 500 years, 1,000 years away from us. The Biden administration and Democrats in Congress are wasting no time in their efforts to reset the direction of America's future. The Wall Street Journal estimates that of the $1.7 trillion stimulus bill, only $825 billion was directly related to COVID. And it's estimated that 2021 will include another $3 trillion in stimulus money printing, bringing the total to $6.3 trillion in 2020 and 2021 alone. And that's why you'll instantly understand when Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs both say it's the time to buy gold. It's time to heed that advice. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA. So go ahead and give the folks at Patriot Gold Group a call to discuss physical gold and silver. And the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 5 years in a row from 2016 until present. Click the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video.
Another edition of Trad Cat Night special guest exclusive podcast right here on the tradcatnight.org website, folks. I hope you all are having a very wonderful and blessed day. And on today's program, David DuByne from Adapt 2030 is joining the show yet again. And he, of course, is keeping his eyes on the latest in regards to Earth changes. And David and I think this is going to be like our third or fourth show. We are going to be getting through some of the latest. We want to talk the latest with the Earth's magnetic field. We want to talk the latest economically. What are we going to see? Deflation, inflation, hyperinflation, and really so much more. My goodness, we're going to get to a lot here, folks. David, thank you so much for joining the program yet again. Where should we begin? So much, of course, happening since the last time we talked. Increase in volcanic activity, all kinds of insane earthquakes, even a little tsunami that was registered there in Australia that most people missed. I actually missed it until I saw it. I was some weeks ago as a result of that Loyalty Island quake. But there's a lot to keep up with on the Earth changes level. Where would you like to begin today?
Well, with that being said, in Australia, did you notice that New Zealand has implemented a new tourism tax? Yay, with all the things going on, they want to implement a tourism tax to stop global warming when we got all these dozens of volcanoes firing off. Mm-hmm. Cinnabung just put a 40,000-foot eruption into the atmosphere, equatorial eruption. Etna's going crazy. You should see the lava flows off there. I encourage everybody, please go look and see the beauty of Mother Nature in action when we look at this Etna lava flow. It looks like something out of the Land of the Lost with the red oozing out of the cones. We got 3 volcanoes simultaneously erupting down in Guatemala. And the audacity to say that we have something to do with the CO2 being emitted in the atmosphere. It's just comical now, really, that the stretch they're going to continue to try to push us on this Green Deal that's not going to make any difference whatsoever. And we saw the failures already in Texas. And then the twisted media trying to blame natural gas burning power plants for the failures of the windmills. See, we're in such a strange, what is version of reality with the news pushing lies and lies as truth. And where do we stand? I mean, people pushing CO2 taxes, and we're having an enormous amount of eruptions. And even of all this economy ceased, you know how much reduction there was for the COVID, and there was only a 5% reduction in CO2 emissions globally. So that shows you right there that there's definitely a disconnect between what is told to you about human activity and what is happening on the natural front. So this reset is just nothing more than a control mechanism to make sure that food is controlled as we go into lower food production times. And it has been an exciting month. There's been so much heading on there for this. A crazy month of amplification in what we're seeing around us for all these earth changes. And I might say, electromagnetic changes affecting the human psyche.
Also, in regards to space weather here, what's happening the latest with the sun? I know the sun's been doing some weird stuff here as of late. As a matter of fact, I meant to check that out before even coming on to you what the latest was over at spaceweather.com. Solar windstorm buffering Earth's magnetic sphere here today, causing minor G1 geomagnetic storm in Europe. Auroras are being seen, so auroras are picking up all over the place. What else you got on your radar there in regards to space weather?
Yeah, what else are you noticing with the sun right there? A measly 2 sunspots, right? So we're supposed to be coming roaring back into solar maximum with all the experts saying, no, you guys who study in the grand solar minimum are off completely, that the sun cycle is going to be even stronger than solar cycle 24. We are at a pittance of sun activity right now. And then it dropped off a cliff. So if you go to Sislo, SISLO, and you take a look at the different charts, you can either look at the daily sunspot count, the monthly sunspot count, or you can go back for the full duration of time back into the 1700s, and they even have what they call -1, -2, -3. It's sort of reconstruction observations based on manuscripts and other people at the time talking about it, and you can go, I think, a -7 off that into the 1600s. Looking out at the sun, it should have been roaring already back into solar. And since you're there on spaceweather.com, let me direct everybody who's going to listen to this over there. You're going to look on the left side where it says sunspotless days. And the thing you need to notice most is from 2006 to 21. See, 2006 is where it was ramping back up again after solar minimum. And you notice it's 19% of 70 days with no sunspots. And then, when you come back in and you get into the minimum, there should be an enormous amount of days with no sunspots as you transit from, when you see a 0%, that means we're at a solar maximum. It's incredibly high activity. So there's no sunspotless days. Every single day had sunspots, meaning there's more activity on the sun. But what I want to bring you to is that 2006, as it slowly, gradually from that last solar maximum leading into minimum, goes 19, 42, 73, 71, drops, and then, but look at 2010, there were only 51 days as we're coming out in the last cycle. There were only 51 days for the entire year of no sunspots coming out and leading into the turn on, the kick into the next cycle. But where we sit in 2021, we have 32 days already this year alone with no sunspots. We should be down, according to the experts, be roaring into this new minimum. And that's what they were trying to deflect everybody talking about the grand solar minimum and things that were going to affect our agriculture. That, oh no, don't listen to those armchair scientists over there. We're the true experts. We actually have degrees from some prestigious university. You can only listen to us. You don't listen to any independent researchers because they're all wrong. But it really turns out that almost all the independent researchers saying, you know what, this solar cycle is going to be incredibly low, going to be extremely strung out, and it's not going to have very much activity, are now suddenly being proven more correct than the quote unquote experts, because their predictions were that we're going to scream out of this regular 11-year solar minimum and go right back, rocketing even higher than solar cycle 24. And here we sit, decreased activity, the Atlantic overturning oscillations slowing down, the Florida current slowing down. You got all this extra water from the Beaufort Sea, which is, by the way, a natural freshwater deposit in the Arctic. Don't let anybody delude you that it melted and that's why there's fresh water. It's the largest freshwater depository in the Arctic, as always has been. But this year it's spilling out even more fresh water, diluting. So there's a huge pool of warm water that is not sinking into the Atlantic, in the North Atlantic, like it normally does with that overturning oscillation. So expect massive, and I mean massive, amounts of storms this year. And I'll start with the tornado forecast. Distant early warning. Everybody get ready. This season for tornadoes in the United States and Canada, those of you in Europe, the upper level winds shearing with the lower level winds, that's how a lot of stuff spins anyway, regular tornadic season. This year, we're in a significant La Nina, and the last time this happened was 2011, which was the highest amount of recorded tornadoes ever since the 1950s. and we have low solar activity. There's other clouds layering in with the cosmic rays, and it's a whole different set of third mid-level winds that are going to add into the regular high-low winds that are normally spinning that cause the tornadic activity. Now there's going to be another tertiary set of winds. This is unusual, and just expect extremes coming into this. And really, and we saw what happened in Texas. So please, the bare minimum you can do is get water for a week or two. And I was at an estate sale yesterday, and I got a matching set of kerosene burning or oil burning. You can burn anything in it to get yourself some heat. Make sure you get some wicks, because you're going to need light at night, and batteries aren't going to last so long. But, half a gallon of the lamp fuel mixed with olive oil myself is going to last you an enormous amount of time. I guess it's going to last more than weeks if you fill up those lamps, right? And batteries are going to go out pretty quick.
No, that's well said. One of the questions I had down here, and it looks like you handled it for the most part, was in regards to specifically the spring. I just had Terrell Blackstar on the other day, and he said, buckle up, according to his, prognostication, what he's looking at. But it seems like with all my Earth Changes experts, it's like spring, be ready. You know what I mean? There's not one person that's really disagreeing with one, although everyone's sort of coming at it from a different angle. But how close do we get? I mean, we've all seen the movie probably, I think so, The Day After Tomorrow. I mean, do we get dangerously close to something that's shown in that movie?
Not at that rapid speed of onset, but the thing you would start to look for are extreme cooling temperatures in areas that it doesn't normally get that cold. And you have to ask yourself, we've seen a few of these events this year, and not a lot of news media covered the blistering cold that also just raced across Europe. They had Europe, the beast from the east that was significantly as cold as the temperatures and anomalies seen in the Midwest and down into Texas and Mexico. But it happened in Europe too. And not that many people talked about it. All-time coldest ever recorded in the UK for the month. And record snowfalls all from Scotland, Wales, all the way down into England, way far south, and then just amazing amounts of the heaviest snowstorms in Greece.
Yeah.
And it just went on and on and on, but we never heard about that in the States. It was the same thing that happened in the United States and Canada, North America, as in Europe. And Asia also had some extreme cold events. I mean, the coldest ever recorded in Korea. Now, that's one of the coldest places in Asia, that peninsula out there. Oh, my, you don't want to be there in winter unless you like cold. They set new all-time record temperature cold records there as well, and snow records. Nobody talked about that too much. But you start to see now with this overturning oscillation, it mainly affects the northern hemisphere. And I did a whole video on this. I tried to really suss it out and show all these three things happening at the same time. So you're going to be looking for Europe to have cooler temperatures, and if there's anywhere remotely close to where there's going to be a massive storm bigger than Storm Sandy, that'll be around in the ocean this year somewhere in northern part of the U.S., blasting again if this warm water feeds the storm like it did in 2011 and 12.
So where's the place to be in America? Because most of the listening audience is here in America, although we're international here at Track at Night. 90+% are probably here somewhere, Canada, United States. Where is the place to be warmest? The changes are taking place. And any idea?
Your own underground bunker with a magnetic motor to generate heat. That's kind of the safe place, But in reality,
in a van down by the river.
Exactly. Get the banjo.
Get ready. I know in some of your videos here, you've been highlighting some prophecies. I know you talk biblical stuff too, but you also throw in some of these other prophecies that are outside of Christian circles too, like the Hopi and some of these other tribes or whatnot. They all seem to kind of be saying the same thing that we're saying. It's like, get prepared, So maybe we could talk a little bit more specifically what you've been handling in some of these videos on the prophetic side of things.
Yeah, and just to drop back a second, what the extreme weather that we normally see over Texas in the Panhandle and the tornado alley, quote unquote, that we're used to, that's all going to shift a little bit. I should say a little bit, way more over to the east. So places like in eastern Tennessee that aren't used to seeing tornadoes and heavy weather like this, that's where the center and the periphery edges are going to be. So places like North Georgia, that is a place that is going to see some of the most extremes of the extremes during this time. Like, I've been in Georgia anyway, during some time, but they get a ferocious lightning storms and just the most electrical activity, scary down there. This is going to be well above that. This is going to be into like, you understand why the ancients feared the skies kind of thing coming up here this spring.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So it's going to be, pushed more eastward than generally the Tornado Alley area. So anywhere from Arkansas over to the east, you're going to get an enormous amount more extreme weather. So again, these are going to be tornadoes, fast-moving events, winds, hailstorms, electrical activity, that kind of thing. So it's going to be a terrifying spring for many. But with that said, on the prophetic side of things, I think that regardless of where we all sit in the timeline, we all are connected back to the oneness, God, the source, whatever you like to term it as. There's so many names for divinity and what we consider creation and all-time space and everything in this dimension as well as other dimensions. And this thing that we know as time that's limitless, it's the consciousness vibration that created all of that. We're all tapped into it regardless of your time. And those further back in time seem to be a lot more in tune with the natural flow of things. So perhaps they were more easily connected back to the source itself. So when we start to look back through history, we see a lot of things that are, well, repeating in cycles of time. That's fine. But then you start to see the same thing. There were a lot of people that were looking to divinity. And it seems that when the back's against the wall and people are really scared and things just don't make sense because of what man has created for them, they always turn back to the light to look for answers. And I don't know whether it's just through history, but we seem to reach these pivot points where there's a lot of information flowing that there's suddenly this, enlightenment's a proper word to use, but it's kind of overword cliche used. But it's at the point where people have given up everything back to, I submit to everything from the light, and this is the way we move to. Maybe there's no other choice, but there's a significant shift in these junctures in history, and a lot of information flows. So if you survive those events and afterward, would you not tell the next generations or carve it in stone or leave messages on canyon walls or write myths and stories so they would be passed down through religion? Instead of being a story, you make it the integral part of a society that never disappears ever. So it's always there as the message for the next future, 500 years, 1,000 years away from us.